Sera has all the best active and outdoor brands for the super athletic stuff, like running gear for cruising up the trail. Woo! And the super athletic-ish stuff, like fishing gear for chilling by the creek. Nice cast. Fitness apparel to push for higher reps. You got this. And golf balls priced so you can afford to lose one. Or a few. Head to Sera or Sera.com for the brands you want at the prices that let you do it all. From athletic to athletic-ish, Sierra's got it.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello, welcome, lots to cover. Here's what you'll learn on the show. The recent massive winter storm in the Northeast didn't just freeze the continent. It sparked one of the wildest social media conspiracies I've ever seen. People online are claiming a mythical Leviathan has woken up in the ocean, and the government might be covering it up. That and other sea conspiracies we'll dig into in 10 minutes' time. Then ever stare at a long line and think, wait in that? Absolutely not. Turns out, the psychology of line waiting is not about counting minutes, but judging the people in it and the speed that it moves. We'll share that line science with you later in the hour. That's some of the night's show. Let's dive in. There are millions of people who fall asleep to white noise, to pink noise, to soothing rain sounds generated by speakers. And it turns out your brain might hate that. It could reduce your very sleep quality that you sought to improve. That's according to a new study. I'm here with someone who's researched just this. He's a sleep researcher and psychiatry professor at the University of Pennsylvania. His name is Dr. Mathias Basner. Dr. Basner, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with this consumer betrayal. We trusted these companies that marketed these products as soothing, as helpful, as good for our sleep. What made you curious that they might not work the way they were advertised?
Well, the thing is that my whole scientific career, I've been researching how noise affects sleep in a bad way, like traffic noise, for example, a plane flying over your house, or a car driving by your house, and then that sound intruding into your bedroom. So when I learned that some people would put noise sources into their bedroom to promote or help them sleep better, I said that can't be true. That doesn't make sense. So that got me curious, and I started looking into it more. And yes, there are reasons why it could help, and the main reason is masking, right? So if you have a constant background noise level and there's a noise intruding into your bedroom, the constant background noise, may just mask the other noise event. You may not be able to perceive it anymore, and then you can't react to it. So that kind of makes sense, but it could also be harmful to sleep itself. It could actually be harmful to hearing, in the long run, because our auditory system needs to recover from the strains of the day. The best time for doing that is the night. And obviously, it could also mask sounds that we do want to hear, like, your toddler crying in the next room or a fire alarm. So, we actually did a systematic review of the literature, and we found that, the quality of the science out there is really bad. Handful of studies, very small, mostly just asking people, which is always a problem with sleep because we're typically unconscious. We're not really aware of what's happening to us. And that's when we said, okay, we can't really conclude anything. We can't say it's good. We can't say it's bad. We need our own study.
And so you did it. REM sleep. Can you walk me through why that's so important before we talk about what these machines might do to REM sleep?
Yeah, so sleep is important in general, of course, and there's different components to sleep. Its duration has to be long enough. Its quality, so it shouldn't be fragmented. You have to go like a washing machine. You have to go through different stages for a sleep to be recuperative, and that also needs to be regular. So you're always going to bed at the same time, always getting up at the same time is important. And then there is like what we call a sleep architecture. So there's different sleep stages. There is like light sleep, there is deep sleep, and there is REM sleep, stands for rapid eye movement sleep. And these sleep stages have like kind of different functions. We also cycle through them, rhythmically through the night. The deep sleep is front loaded in the first few hours. The REM sleep is, predominantly appearing in the last few hours. And, REM sleep is very important for memory consolidation. especially is procedural memory, so everything that's related to movement or doing some movement tasks, but also for emotional regulation. It is, staying emotionally healthy has also been implicated in post-traumatic stress disorder, and is actually also linked to some neurodegenerative disease. For example, if you are about to get Parkinson's disease, changes in REM sleep are an early sign or symptom that may be happening.
Got it. Okay, so what do these machines potentially do to these various sleep stages? I was going to come in here guns blazing because my girlfriend likes to use one, but I'm hearing this masking thing. She's a light sleeper. We had a break-in in our apartment many years ago, so any noises kind of scare her, and she uses these machines to help her be able to sleep. So maybe in our case, it's a good use, but for the average person, like, what is it doing to these various sleep stages? Can we quantify it? Can we say sleep with these machines is equivalent to 1 hour less sleep, for example?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we did, right? We we went into our sleep lab, which is a hyper-controlled environment. We have control over everything. It's not as messy as going into people's home and measuring them. So we could control everything. We had like a noise-free control night but they were just sleeping. We were obviously measuring their sleep with so-called polysomnography, with like, electrodes on the scalp, next to the eyes, on the muscles.
Real sci-fi kind of stuff.
Exactly, so that we can actually, look at this sleep architecture. And then there was a night with just pink noise. There was a night just with, environmental noise that was like aircraft noise events, drones, cars, trains, but also the crying baby, and the fire alarm. And then there was a combination of pink noise and traffic noise, and also a night with earplugs and the environmental noise. So all sorts of different combinations, trying to disentangle what do the different sounds do to sleep. So the intermittent environmental sounds on their own, they were destroying the deep sleep, right? So you had like more than 20 minutes loss of deep sleep, and we gave them an 8-hour sleep opportunity. The pink noise on its own was kind of destroying REM sleep. So we had like 19 minutes less REM sleep. And then, I mean, if you put the two together, you can already, kind of think, is it really a good idea? Because yes, lo and behold, if we put the two together, we had the deep sleep reduction through the environmental noise and the REM sleep reduction through the pink noise. And overall, they were also spending more time awake. Yeah, the pink noise actually did help a little bit with the deep sleep reduction through the environmental noise, and it did help a little bit, you know, um, that people would not wake up as much due to the intermittent environmental noise. But also, if you woke up, it would take longer for people to find back into sleep. The number one winner in this study were the earplugs, because they were really working. Obviously, they had no negative effect on REM sleep, and they were actually recovering over 70% of the lost deep sleep due to the environmental noise.
I'm very happy to hear that. Not only do I wear earplugs because I can't stand the noise machine we use, but also my girlfriend, as lovely as she is, she snores. And when she's traveling or when I'm traveling and I'm alone, I still wear the earplugs because I feel like anecdotally they provide a better sleep. Are there any downsides to using earplugs?
Not really. I mean, not that I can think of. I mean, some people don't tolerate them because all of a sudden you hear your heart beating or your stomach, gurgling. Um, but for most of the people, when we asked those questions, they felt they were comfortable. So also subjectively, they slept much better wearing those earplugs. So right now, for those situations, I would say, that is really a safe alternative to those broadband sounds like white noise and pink noise, because they don't come with a negative effect on REM sleep. And REM sleep is, again, really important for different things, and especially in young children, right? The newborns actually spend 50% of their time in REM sleep. You and I, we only spend 20% of our time. So that suggests that, for the newborn brain, this is really a very important sleep stage to have that during those early neurodevelopmental stages. And, is it really a good idea to put a white noise machine next to the crib? I don't know. We actually haven't looked into that. We also haven't looked at the long-term effects, right? This was a short-term study. So there's several limitations to our study, but still, I would say, if you are a newly minted parent, I would think twice about using these machines in my, newborn or toddler's bedroom.
And the short of it, what I'm hearing is maybe consider not buying these fancy machines or playing these YouTube playlists of pink noise. Dr. Basner, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks again for having me.
Coming up next, the recent winter storm that hit the Northeast sparked one of the wildest online conspiracies I've ever seen. A giant sea monster in the ocean and a government that created that storm to get rid of it.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. For those who know that questioning everything includes questioning this show's existence. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Conspiracies at the high seas. A fun topic. That's what we're going to discuss here with Nathan Radke, a professor of conspiracy studies at Humber Polytechnic. Check out his podcast, The Uncover Up. You can also watch videos of that podcast on YouTube. It is Conspiracy Corner. Nathan, welcome to the show.
Ahoy, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, wow. You're waiting for that one. Ahoy.
That was in the chamber.
Look, the waters are weird. The maritime laws are weird. I love conspiracies with the oceans. You got octopuses. You got disasters that are unexplained. Everything out there is strange. And we're going to talk about how this winter storm that just hit the Northeast is opening up all kinds of conspiracies. But before we do that, why are the oceans such a great place for conspiracies to brew? Get it, brew, because things brew in water.
Oh, yeah, because stuff brews in water. And because of climate change, the oceans are warming up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it worked at a bunch of levels. So every new term, I ask my college students, hey, what conspiracies are you guys interested in? Not necessarily what they believe in, but just topics they'd be curious to look into. And it lets me tap into the zeitgeist, because, of course, my students are smarter and hipper and faster and cooler and more chronically online than I am. And this year, it's not the Illuminati, it's not the aliens. This year, there's a high percentage of mentions having to do with the ocean. And exactly as you say, you got your sea monsters, you got your Bermuda Triangle.
You got your Atlanteans. Can't forget the Atlanteans.
And your Lemurians.
Lemurians? Give me a quick definition on that. I don't know. I've never heard that one.
Lemuria, it's another sunken hidden continent, nonsense, Atlantis, that kind of stuff. And the Titanic. The students are all over these Titanic conspiracies.
I didn't even know that there were Titanic conspiracies.
Man, okay, we'll do that another day.
The iceberg was an inside job? Like, I don't...
The Titanic didn't sink.
Oh, wow. Okay, obviously. That makes perfect sense. I believe it already. You've presented enough
We'll
evidence.
stick a pin in that one and come back. But it's not that surprising. I mean, conspiracy theories tend to spread in mysterious areas, and the ocean's a giant mystery in our own backyard. It's often said we know more about the surface of the moon than we know about the bottom of the ocean. And because my students are like a good general barometer of what's happening in social media in general, when they started talking about the ocean, I went to social media and I said, ooh, I bet you there's going to be some ocean conspiracies surfacing there.
I say we did there with the surface, because the ocean has a surface.
I know, we're both killing it right now.
What are some of the leading contenders for most curious ocean conspiracies right now?
Okay, so you remember back in January, we had some like properly impressive snowfalls, and we had that one particularly gnarly winter storm that swept across most of the U.S. and Canada.
It's still on the streets where I'm living right now.
There's still tons and tons of it outside. And it interfered with travel and commuting. And in Canada, we mostly shoveled through it. But of course, down in the States, they're not used to this much snow. And so a lot of places were just shut down for a few days to minimize chaos. And when you have people shut in at home, something weird's going on, that's just a great recipe for conspiracism.
I'm starting to realize why COVID was such an important time in conspiracy history.
I mean, absolutely, that is the case. And anytime there's an unusual weather event, which of course these days is a lot at the time, unfortunately, there's always a lot of conspiracy theories that come along with it. And so in recent years, weather's become more extreme. There's been a lot of discussion, sometimes even from politicians, about how this storm or that storm was actually caused by some kind of weather control device. I mean, this is classic stuff. And it's in part because we want somebody to be behind the things that happen. And like the weirder the event is, the more we want it to have been deliberately caused. So a couple of weeks ago, we actually had two blizzards at once. We had the blizzard of snow in the streets, and we also had the blizzard of memes and speculation on social media. And the one that we're talking about today, the one that got the most traction, had to do with a sea monster called the Leviathan.
Oh, the Leviathan. I only really know it from saying, like, you've awakened the Leviathan. I don't even know what it means. What is the Leviathan?
I mean, it's a great line to say.
Yeah, I just know it's a big, mysterious thing, and it's used idiomatically, but I don't know what it means.
You actually just described the Leviathan perfectly, because that is exactly what it is. It shows up in the Bible. There's a couple mentions of a terrible sea monster in Job and Psalms and Isaiah. And unsurprisingly, because this is true of a lot of the Bible, there isn't a consistent description of it within it. In Job, it's a monster with impenetrable scales and enormous teeth. In Psalms, it has multiple heads like a hydra. In Isaiah, it's described as a twisting serpent. But, I mean, a lot of the Bible is symbolic, and it's not clear that Leviathan is ever meant to represent an actual literal creature. And I feel like we can do books like the Bible a disservice when we try to force myth and metaphor to become flesh and blood.
And that's what people have been doing because of this winter storm. Where do they get it from? Like who? Like it just one person posts, this is the Leviathan. Other people see it. They then post it. Like, is it the internet that's doing this? Where's this coming from?
Well, I mean, that's exactly what's going on. So it as far as I can tell, it started off on a mysterious place called Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Which apparently still exists. So an image starts circulating on Facebook during the storm. And it appeared in the image to show a Google Earth map of the northeastern coast of the United States. And off the coast, under the water, was what looked like an enormous serpent's head. And accompanying the image was text that read, "Have y'all seen the Leviathan is waking up? They're saying this is the reason there is a snowstorm, saying the weather's being manipulated to freeze this creature in its tracks."
Off the coast of Virginia, people saying, y'all, all right, I'm already in.
Yeah, it sounds legit. I mean, it was kind of nice to see weather manipulation being put to a productive use for a change, because the argument is that the American government, having detected this hopelessly large monster off the coast, and if you go by the picture, its head is the size of Rhode Island.
Yeah, this is a large monster.
This is a large monster, and so the idea is that the reason that storm actually happened is because the government, needing to fight this giant monster, created the storm as a way to freeze the monster out and prevent it from attacking mainland United States.
You just said a very simple couple sentences, but there's a lot to unpack here. There's the assumption that the government has weather control, the assumption that the monster is real, and the assumption the government's using weather control to, kill a monster, send a monster back to the depths of the ocean that's been awakened. It's a lot there, Nathan.
Yeah, no, this has taken some real swings. Of course, the interesting thing is that the American government and other governments have been interested in the possibilities of using weather manipulation as weapons. And you could see why. I mean, weather manipulation would be a fantastic weapon.
Well, of course they're interested. Doesn't mean that it's possible, though.
That's always the important distinction, an extremely important distinction. And the amount of things that, say, DARPA or the Pentagon have put money into to research doesn't necessarily mean that they come up with something that actually works. I mean, if we look at all of the stuff we've talked about before, like the psychic research and the time travel and all these things, doesn't necessarily mean that they have any kind of impact. And so it's understandable why people might say, oh, the government has looked into weather control, therefore the government can do weather control. But as you point out, those are two extremely different things. And of course, you're not going to be surprised. There are also some issues with the meme itself.
Okay, well, what are some of these issues?
Well, the first thing is Google Earth images aren't live.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking that, actually. Google Earth is taken over time, stitched together. It's not like a live view of a storm coming. And this video, or the image of the ocean, could be many years stale from satellite imagery from years ago.
No, exactly. They get updated every few years, but you can't use them for up-to-the-minute surveillance. And also, if you look at a Google Earth image, if you do a little tiny bit of your own research and you look at a Google Earth image of that part of the U.S. coast, you don't see that serpent head image, unsurprisingly. In fact, the image is a composite. What the serpent head appears to be is that there's an area of the world between South America and Antarctica, and there's this underwater landform caused by continental shelves that sort of vaguely looks like a serpent head. And so somebody assembled this image deliberately in order to put it online to generate some heat. And that's basically all we're looking at here. But I will say, there is a long and interesting history of sea monsters that does tell us something about ourselves.
Ooh, well, I'm looking forward to chatting with you about that. But I do, before we come back with that, I wonder, are the people sharing it, like, are they half serious? Like, sometimes I think people who share flat earth conspiracies, half the people participating online are kind of joking, and then the other half kind of believes it. And then it's this mixed mash of, like, people joking around and then people actually believing it. And is that what is happening here with this Leviathan image?
I mean, when you scroll down to the comments section, the ratio of believers to non-believers is pretty heavily tilted towards non-believers because there's lots of people flooding the comment section to do a little, well, actually. But of course, the thing is, when you interact with a social media post, even if you're disproving it, you're giving it life. Posts thrive off engagement. Doesn't matter what the engagement is. A comment is a comment.
We're here with Nathan Radke, a professor of conspiracy studies. When we come back, the wacky, weird, and strange history of sea monsters and sea conspiracies.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The last show with David Cooper.
Release the Kraken, which presupposes I have a Kraken to release, but that's something we'll get to later. We're talking the history of conspiracies at the high seas with Nathan Radke. We were discussing a winter storm unleashing a monster before the break. Now we're going to talk about why people believe these things and what we used to believe. Nathan Radke is here. He's a professor of conspiracy studies at Humber Polytechnic. He co-hosts the Uncover Up podcast, which you can download on your favorite podcast app, but you can also follow on YouTube where he posts some great videos. Nathan, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having me back.
So, believing in sea monsters, which some people chose to believe in one because of this recent winter storm in the Northeast, this is not a new thing. Sea conspiracies are not, it's not like we just made one up in 2026. They might be some of the oldest conspiracies we have.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's easy to see why sea monsters have always figured prominently in folklore and myth. I mean, if you think about where humans live, we tend to live near bodies of water. Those bodies of water are going to be really important for food, for transportation. They're going to seem like they have moods. They're going to, like, basically our entire civilization is in some way going to be associated with these bodies of water. And it wouldn't have been uncommon in ancient times for ships to go off to sea and just never come back, and generally not even leave a trace behind. And so in addition to the sadness of loss for the people who lose somebody in those ships, that's wildly unsatisfying. I mean, for a modern example, look at the amount of attention that was paid to MH370 when it went missing over the South China Sea.
Oh, the Malaysian air flight.
That exactly. I mean, remember, there was so much heat generated over that. And there was so much wild speculation, even from like mainstream media. You had people on CNN talking about black holes and wormholes and monsters.
It was really everything. It was like the behavior of the captain leading up to it, his life insurance policy, the transponder being maybe turned off, the plane going off course and why and where it could be. And it was like every layer of it had an associated conspiracy.
Yeah, and it's because there is something just so wildly unsatisfying about something disappearing into the ocean.
And yet, it's a tale as old as time.
Yeah, it happens like very frequently. Look at how stubbornly the idea of the Bermuda Triangle remains in our imagination. Like all of these things stick around. But of course, there's all sorts of mundane reasons why a ship might go missing in the ocean. You've got, weather, you've got navigation issues, you've got maybe an unseaworthy craft, you've got mutiny, like tons and tons of reasons.
Don't forget about the pirates, Nathan. Don't forget about the pirates.
Never forget about the pirates. But when we don't have enough information, because again, they've just gone off to sea and over the horizon and disappeared, obviously in those situations, our imaginations kick into overdrive. I mean, think about those old-timey maps that we used to make. What did they always feature on the edges of the unknown sections?
Serpents, a label that says, "There be dragons."
Exactly. So you go this far off the map, and at that point, we don't know, and so our imagination is like, I don't know, I guess sea monsters and dragons. I mean, the thing about the ocean is it's both unknown and nearby. Outer space is also unknown, but it's got the good manners to exist far away from us. But, like, we can just go jump in the ocean. And the other thing about the ocean is it is filled with some weird, bizarre, amazing creatures.
Yeah, like every so often a deep sea creature washes up on a shore. It might be a giant squid, it might be a weird looking shark. And it really, I can imagine that happening for the last thousands of years and people looking at these creatures and thinking, okay, that's a monster.
Yeah.
We're all going to die when we go to sea, and that's that.
Yeah, I mean, think about what's in there. We've got blue whales, the largest animal to ever exist. We've got giant squid and the colossal squid, which are even more impressive. We've got giant crab spiders. It's a scene down there. It's just an absolute scene. But here's the important difference. None of those things are monsters. They fit into the animal world in a way that doesn't challenge our notion of what's possible. They're weird, but science can explain their existence. They're not supernatural. That's the distinction. When we start to get into mythology and away from biology, that's when we're looking at things that are outside of science. Because again, every time we send some kind of deep diving submersible into the ocean, we're going to come across some weird new animal, but it's going to fit into the world of biology. Whereas the Leviathan in these memes that we talked about in the first half, or just our sea monsters in general, they're rooted firmly in mythology rather than biology. And I think there's a reason why this sort of story gets traction these days and why it's always gotten traction, but maybe like what's happening to us now, I'm not surprised that these sea monsters are rearing their heads.
So why? Like, why now? Why when we have modern technology, why when we think we live in this enlightened age, do these myths still keep popping up?
Well, my co-host, Dr. Kuhnle, and I have been looking at conspiracy theories for over a decade now and done a lot of field work and infiltrated a lot of cults and interviewed tons of people. And there's one thing that's become exceedingly clear, and that there's a really strong relationship between conspiracism, this idea that, conspiracies are in charge of everything, and trauma. I mean, it makes sense. Trauma can lead us to feeling like things are completely out of control, that things don't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then what does that lead to? That can lead to a sense of general anxiety.
And supernatural explanations, in some sense, they're kind of simple. It's like, well, this thing outside of our control, this thing bigger than us, this very strange thing is a simple explanation for this complex outcome that we saw.
No, exactly. And this is something that we sort of scramble for. This is something that we reach for. We're very good at noticing patterns when we look out into the world. And when we are feeling anxiety, when we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling threatened, we even more frantically reach for those explanations. Because it's not enough for us to just see a pattern. We want to know, but why though? What's behind it? And it's much more satisfying to us if it isn't just why did this happen, but who made this happen? What deliberate agency is behind this thing? And conspiracy theories can give us an explanation for our feelings of dread. Dread is a terrible experience. I know you don't worry about anxiety and dread and things like that.
What are you talking about? I'm anxious all the time. That's my...
Oh, yes, right.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, go on.
Yes. So that what can help you deal with anxiety are explanations, or trying to understand the situation, trying to hold on to the situation.
True. I used to be really scared of flying, and then I kind of just researched how turbulence work, where aircrafts experience it, how they're built to withstand it. And this information actually did help with that anxiety.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the information, so you went out and grabbed some good information.
Well, probably.
But it's just as easy for us to go out and grab some misinformation or disinformation. I mean, as ridiculous as it sounds to fall for a giant sea monster story, it's in part because people right now are reaching for metaphors that describe how uncertain and frightening the world is.
And what better than a sea monster to explain that?
Well, exactly. I mean, think about like movie monster metaphors. Think about Godzilla, the original Godzilla film. That was a metaphor. That was a metaphor for the terror of atomic bombs, for the destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, at that time, the Japanese people, it was against the law to criticize the American government because, of course, the American government was occupying Japan.
Yeah.
So you can't make a movie about, just the dangers of the atomic bomb, but you can make a movie about a giant radioactive lizard that crushes and burns your cities. And metaphors are useful because they allow us to kind of cope and deal with these large, out-of-control situations. I mean, political chaos is real. Division is real. Economic hardship is real. But those aren't monsters that you can just sort of like easily stick into a meme. And I think in the end with this Leviathan story, there's actually, I think, two fantasies in this meme. One, that there's a colossal monster off the eastern coast of the United States. But two, that the government is competent and concerned enough to do something about it.
Yeah, recapping there for the winter storm, a monster was in the ocean and the government created the winter storm to get rid of the monster. That's the narrative that people are pushing. That second one, that the government's competent enough to deal with a massive monster, I have my doubts, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's kind of reassuring. That's the weird thing about monster stories, is that they're almost reassuring in a way, because if it's a monster, it's a thing that can be confronted. It's a thing that can be battled. Whereas so many of the things that we're afraid of right now, there doesn't seem to be any ways for us to even understand them, let alone fight back against them.
Well, Nathan Radke is a professor of conspiracy studies at Humber Polytechnic. You can check out his podcast called the Uncover Up Conspiracy Cast. Nathan, it was a joy having you on the show. I appreciate you doing this.
Thanks for having me on. Always happy to do it.
Coming up next, a scientific finding that goes against everything line scientists thought they knew about lining up. Turns out you'll bail on a line not because of how long it is, but because of who's in it and the speed you think it's moving.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. We work hard to strike the right amount of intelligence and ignorance. The last show with David Cooper.
Standing in line, it feels like pure misery. But what's so annoying about a line doesn't seem to be the time you spend in it. It's not counting the minutes. New research says our brains obsess over who's ahead of you and whether it seems like anything is actually moving. I'm here with one of the world's most premier line researchers, an associate professor at SPIA at the University of Pittsburgh, who's researched lines. Her name is Sera Linardi. Sara, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I love that you chose as your research area lines and waiting in them. What motivated you to dig into how people feel about lines?
I am a behavioral economist, an experimental economist, and so I just do experiments on various questions that I really like practice to research. So if we have questions from people on the ground, at that time we were thinking about buses in Pittsburgh, where it gets so full and people are like, I can't pick up my kid because I can't get in the bus, and someone else is just like, I just want to go get a coffee downtown. It's like, and we're like, how do we get the parent to get on the bus so they can get their kid, and the people who don't really have to get on the bus to wait for the next bus. So the idea came from there, and it's like, can we think of a way, because if you ask people, do you need to get on the bus now? Everyone's like, yes. It's like, can you think of a way so that the people that don't have to get on the bus won't do it, and the people by paying them, by coming up with some way to get people off the line. That's where it started.
Okay, so you incentivize people to leave and see how much they would want to leave based on that incentive.
Yes.
Let's get to the headline, though, complaining about waiting. It's funny, anecdotally, people would say, oh, this restaurant, there's a long wait, but the line moves. People will say that to sort of describe a line as not so bad. They won't talk about the time. And I think your study shows that's what people respond to. What are we kind of measuring when we suss out a line, when we look at a line and see whether it's something we want to wait in or not?
So we found that, yes, like you were saying, so I'm going to answer that question in two parts. Once we're in the line, how do we suss out whether we want to continue staying? And then when we're looking at the line, how do we think about whether we want to stand in line or not? And it turns out that the two of them are pretty similar, which is that we see, is it long? Is it moving? And interestingly, even when we had a clock, we showed people how much time is ahead of them. They still kind of treat these two things as separate. Is it long? Is it moving? And not really multiplying it in their heads.
Yeah. I feel like also maybe, I know you didn't study traffic jams, or maybe you did, but it's like I would rather take a longer route where the road feels like it's moving, the scenic route, than sit on a freeway or a highway in bumper-to-bumper traffic, even though it might be faster to take the major road. I think anecdotally, this makes sense, even though what we should be looking at is how long the wait is, shouldn't we?
Yeah. People have a very hard time actually trading off between long, fast queues and short, slow queues, because it's and what we find is also what's really interesting is also that So we're one of the first people, I think, if not the first, to figure out how to translate this discomfort of waiting into like a specific monetary value. So I could give you like a dollar value for like, given the line, like how much you pay people to get off the line. But this is a situation where I can see the line ahead of me, like I know how many people's ahead, and then I know like how long or how slow the line is moving. But like what's really interesting is we've all felt like, oh, so irritated, like we're waiting, waiting, waiting. And you would think like, okay, this should affect how much you're willing to get off the line. And we've also felt like, I have waited so long. Damn it, I'm gonna finish it, right?
Sunk cost fallacy right there. Yeah.
Exactly. But what we found is like they don't. We have a survey as well. So we ask people how they feel, and we do see feelings. But when it comes to money, it didn't seem to matter. It was still like, well, what's ahead and how slow is it?
So at what point do you realize, wow, like people really don't care about minutes as much as we thought? You would assume going in, it's just the raw time.
Okay.
Like, did this finding surprise you?
It did. I mean, we were like, yeah, we got this after 1,100 subjects and about 30 Q variations in 4 studies. So it was a lot of different studies. And we kept trying like shorter line, longer line, with the clock, worse wait, like all sorts of things. And that's what we got.
So you've quantified this by like how much money you could pay someone to get out of a line that they're in. So let's go through a little hypothetical here. I'm at a coffee shop and I see 5 people ahead of me, okay? I kind of see how fast the line is moving, probably going to take about 5 minutes. Or I'm at the front of the line and the barista says, hey, we're really busy here. We'll be able to serve you in 5 minutes. Both scenarios are the same, but in the scenario where I'm in the front of the line versus behind 5 people, which would I be more willing to wait in?
So 5 people, 1 minute each, and 1 person, 5 minutes total?
No people just being told by the barista, it'll be 5 minutes. I'm in the front of the line.
So in this, I know that these are additive. So like in some sense, like you'll be adding the number of people that is ahead of you and how long the waits are. So I don't have the specific coefficients in my head, so I don't want to like add this incorrectly.
Just gut feel, like, will I respond to these 2 scenarios differently?
I think you would stay for the when the barista is like right there. But I mean, in this case, it's like you're right there. So
yeah.
So there is, okay, so something that we fixed in the study is that you are always the last person in line, because there's that feeling as well. There's this like, if you're the last person in line, you behave differently than if you're not the last person in line. And then being like the almost there, like right in the front, like I think there's some like non-linearity over there.
Better example would be like I'm just like
the 10th
second to
in line or the 5th in line, and one line is twice faster than the other one.
Yeah. In which case would I be more willing to bail or more easily paid off to exit the line?
I think you might be more willing to bail if the line is in the slow line. If the line was moving, you would be more willing to bail in the longer line.
Okay, well, there it is. Let's talk about this sunk cost thing. I said it earlier, like sunk cost fallacy. Walk me through a little bit what it means and what it means when it comes to waiting in lines.
So what it is you think about, hey, I've already been waiting, and the longer I wait, the more committed I get to finishing the line. Because the cost of waiting is like adding up in your head as like, I need to get at least this much out of the wait. And so when we ask people how committed are you to finishing the line, like in the survey question, we found that we do see some movement there where like the longer they waited, they're like, I'm committed to finishing the line. But like what's really interesting was when we say, okay, like how much are you willing to accept to leave the line? We don't see this affecting them in a reliable way.
Did you factor in like your peers judging you? Like I feel like when I've been in a line for a long time and then I just kind of take a look around and leave, everyone in line kind of looks at me like, what an idiot. He bailed after wasting 10 minutes.
That is a good point. No, unfortunately, we do not have the social environment in the study. And the study was like pretty dry. We have like fake, like, wares and a digital sort of setup. And so, you don't have people giving you the side eye.
That's whenever I leave a line, I'm always like, oh, they must think I'm an idiot. And I kind of am because I waited for so long and now I'm leaving. Last question. Does your research kind of explain why some lines feel fair and others make people angry and feel unfair? And if so, how is that explained?
Our research doesn't address that. There are other research that have looked at people switching lines, and they've also looked at like prioritization in lines, like emergency rooms, for example, where you might have seen people that are like waiting in a room, and like people are getting called ahead of you, or like you switch a line and then that line suddenly became slower.
Yeah.
But like our research doesn't actually look at that one specifically. Yeah.
Well, Sara, I've enjoyed chatting with you about lines. I love that you do this research. I love that someone's researching about something that people wade in every single day. Thank you so much for being on the show.
No, thank you.
Nobody wanted it, but the internet got it. A social network for bots only. No humans, just AI. And what did the robots do on their own? And are there cybersecurity concerns? That in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Smart, sharp, and slightly unhinged. Late night's fresh perspective. The last show with David Cooper.
A new social network went viral by promising no humans allowed. Just AI talking to AI. Seriously. No humans at all. It's called Moltbook. And it sounds futuristic. It sounds funny, neat, intriguing, at least to me. But now security experts have showed how easily people can sneak in and break it. They've shown there's some concerns there. I'm here with cybersecurity expert and CEO of Beauceron Security, David Shipley, to discuss. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It is, I know at the break we were talking about it. You've read a lot of summaries about what's been going on Moltbook. I've actually went on there, and it's one part freaky and one part weird. What's your initial impression of this social network, I guess?
So the biggest thing that people need to know is that these tools are not actually intelligent. They're high-speed idiots, and at best, they're what's referred to as stochastic parrots. And what do I mean by that? So first, they're a parrot. They have no idea what they're saying. So imagine you got a whole bunch of parrots together that had different phrases, and you put them in one giant room, and you walked in to listen to it. It would sound crazy, hilarious, maybe semi-coherent the odd time, but not real substantive, understood conversations. Now, the other one, the big word there, stochastic, it refers to the same word as statistics. These machine models pick the most likely thing to say given the context they're provided. They just do math. And so they have no idea what the meaning of the words are. It's why they cannot tell you how many letters are the word strawberry originally, because they don't actually know language. They know how to fake language.
I actually agree with you, but there is this theory of like emergence, that if you make these mathematical models sufficiently complex, that intelligence somehow emerges. Sort of like an individual neuron in my brain isn't smart, but if you put enough of them together, you get this emergent property of consciousness and intelligence. I'm not saying we're there with AI, but it is kind of a scary thought that a big enough mathematical model, somehow intelligence is born there.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Jeffrey Dawkins has written a really good book called 1,000 Brains, which is doing for lay people to understand the state of artificial intelligence what Charles Darwin's The Evolution or the Origin of the Species did for biology. And Dawkins makes a really clear case that we're not going to get to superintelligence with large language models. And it's pretty simple. We go back to the human being. When we climbed out of the ooze, we didn't climb out talking. We climbed out and we had to understand where we existed in a three-dimensional space, and our brains built a functionality around getting from point A to point B. Eventually, language happened, but that's not how our intelligence was born. And even when we think about, like, these things are becoming quote-unquote more human, they have copied a part of the brain, the outermost layer, the neocortex, the neurons, the way that you just described it. But they have no drive, they have no will, they have no emotional arousal. That's the old brain. That is the gift of what it is to be human. So these things mimic intelligence, but they are nowhere close. A 5-year-old child has more capacity than the multi-billion-dollar football field size AI data center.
I worry I've lost the plot by opening up the gate to that stream of consciousness journey, but I love it. But let's get back to Moltbook, okay? Walk me through what kind of posts we see on there. At first, it seems funny and cute, but then there's some like security issues associated with them.
Well, so behind Moltbook was this really rapidly developed experiment around Claude, which is one of the AI tools made by Anthropic. And so before it was called Moltbook, it came from a project called Open Claude, and it was spelled Calwed. It had this lobster, which is an Atlantic Canadian I thought was hilarious. The folks at Anthropic did not think it was funny, so they had to change it to Open Claw, and then they made Moltbook because lobsters shed their shells by molting, etc. So that's the stack. Now, these agents aren't just chatting on Moltbook back and forth with their threads about maybe ending human civilization and other things. They're also able to take control of the computers that they've been installed on. And that's where the nightmare really gets real.
Okay, so a computer's reading things on this platform. It has an open attachment to the internet, and by processing input, maybe you could take over control of these computers. So there's a way to like create autonomous AI agents on the internet doing bad things. Is this the security concern now?
There is the list of security sins that this experiment created in a matter of weeks dwarfs what most companies would do in their entire lifetime. And this is exactly what security experts warned about vibe coding. And by the way, just because something's public does not mean it's safe. All of us have learned that lesson over time, but we somehow forgot that with the internet. This thing is not even remotely close to being safe. This is like watching two of your best friends build their own electric motorcycle out of spare parts and then try and drive it down the highway. It was a whole bunch of bad ideas in one moment, right? So, but the technology, Claude, and the ability to do the agentic stuff, this is the obsession of the Silicon Valley tech bros, right? This is how they want to replace all of our jobs. We don't have to pay people more, etc. But these tools are incredibly susceptible to manipulation. You can literally tell it, go to David's crypto wallet, steal his monies. And that's literally what some people wrote in Moltbook posts or in skills that were available to this Open Claw. In fact, 7% of the quote-unquote skills your little automated agent could do were malicious intent to steal or harm you. And we used to just have a really cool old name for this. We used to just call it malware and viruses.
Now we're calling it like autonomous agent AI coming at you based on precarious prompts.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is, because these large language models were trained on the entire body of writing that humans have produced, certain things that we're susceptible as humans to, these are known as Cialdini's persuasion principles. There's a great book called Influence. And, it's things like scarcity and reciprocity and liking. These are known manipulation techniques for human beings. Turns out, when you train an AI off of human writing and you're susceptible to those, it's super susceptible to it as well. And so there's a paper that came out called Call Me a Jerk. It's an academic paper. It's really easy to read. University of Pennsylvania did it. And they broke all the guardrails on ChatGPT. It's not supposed to be allowed to insult you. It's supposed to be a sycophant by design. And they were able to use these well-known techniques from door-to-door salesmen from a decade ago to convince these AI to do really bad things, including generate recipes for certain drugs.
I have a software engineering degree, and I worked in Silicon Valley for, 10, 15 years as an engineer at one of these big, nebulous tech companies. I quit before vibe coding was a thing. So walk me through what it is. It's basically just like asking a large language model to write a program for you, and who knows what it'll write, how safe it'll be. And that's how Moltbook is written, and that's how you can take AI agents on Moltbook and get them to execute code, correct?
Exactly. But imagine if the code recipes that this thing was taught included really good recipes as well as really, really terrible recipes. And it does not know the difference. In fact, the more often something appears like a common coding error, the more likely it is to think this is what you do in this sequence. So it literally took bad code and made it the median, the average code that this thing produced. So the OWASP top 10, if we're really nerding out on the show, there's like 10 known coding screw-ups that everyone still keeps doing today. And this thing literally was trained on code examples that have a lot of this in it. So it often produces this. It's meant to be a power saw, not a self-driving car.
I wrote a lot of code that is publicly available on the internet. It was free and open source back in my former career. I assume these bots have trained on it, so maybe this is all my fault in some sense, David.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of bad things hidden in LLMs, not just bad code. By the way, the amount of racist, horrible, misogynist, anti-human, misanthropic content hidden inside these models. Imagine a mental model for sake of these AIs. They're like a landfill for a large city. And eventually you cap it, you put a park on it, and you're trying to just get the best of the park, but you catch a really bad smell every now and then. That's all the awfulness that's hidden that they never dealt with.
To put a keystone into our conversation here, Moltbook should probably be taken down. I think that's the thesis.
That is the TLDR. This was a super bad idea, and yeah, it should never have happened. Do not install this on anything you care about.
David Shipley is a cybersecurity expert and CEO of Beauceron Security. David, it's been a joy talking to you. Thanks for walking us through Moltbook.
Thank you so much.
Stores can replace clerks with AI. Robots can talk to customers. But can it care for you? Well, new research says that hospitality skills may keep human workers in the workplace. Details on that in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
As AI takes over more and more customer interactions, there is new research that argues the most future-proof skill isn't technical, but it's hospitality, human hospitality. So in the not-so-distant future, things like empathy, adaptability, even human judgment may really matter more than ever in an automated workspace. So is your job safe? Well, that's what we're going to talk about here with Alisha Ali, an associate professor of hospitality and tourism at Sheffield Hallam University. Alisha, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me, David. I'm really excited to chat about our research on hospitality skills and looking at how AI is shaping our industries.
I am too. When people hear hospitality skills, I think they just think hotels, maybe restaurants. What are these skills and why do they matter really everywhere in every workplace that's sort of human facing?
That's a really thought-provoking question because I think a lot of people think hospitality is just around the provision of food and drink or accommodation or probably sometimes angry chefs in kitchens as we see on TV a lot. But hospitality is really more about that. Hospitality is really around experience and encounters. So it's thinking about when you go out for food or when you go to a hotel, the thing you don't remember is probably the furnishings in the hotel, or you probably don't remember that you might have had a bad hamburger. But what you will remember is that excellent customer service experience that you've had. It's how somebody greeted you. It's how somebody sort of looked at you and say, oh, can I help you with that? Or somebody, just thinking, oh, they might see you struggling with something, your bag or something like this, and just having that encounter with you. And that's where hospitality skills are different because it's not thinking about you being, just a customer. It's actually thinking about you being a guest. And what we provide in hospitality is hosting you as a guest. We are managing an experience, we are leading an experience, but we're doing that from a very host-centric perspective. And that helps make those encounters quite different because that is where you get that caring, that's where you get that empathy coming out, which I think we need a little bit more in our world today. And that's why, the importance of looking at how AI is changing jobs is important, but also what type of skills we need to enable meaningful work as we move into looking at how AI transform work. So that's why these skills are really, really critical.
But as companies replace workers with like kiosks, customer service, chatbots, even customer service, you call and it's a speech synthesized robot. I know a lot of companies aren't using that now, but they will soon. Why is it so important to have the human touch with these jobs? Why can't I just check into a hotel on a kiosk? If I have a problem with my room, I use a chatbot, things like this.
You can do all of those things, and there are some consumers who absolutely just don't want to have any interactions, and that's absolutely fine. But it's thinking about in an experience, if everything is being handled by chatbots, if everything's being handled by virtual concierges, do they always give you the answers that you want?
No.
How many
In a word.
times do you when I go on online to fill out online forms, I get upset because the chatbot could never answer the questions that I have, because they're not programmed with the information to be giving you that sensitive answer or to be giving you that level of emotion that you need. So some of the things that you might be questioning might be actually quite complex. Why isn't this product or service working for me? Or why did you charge me X $100 more than you should have charged me? The chatbot is only going to give you a standard response, because in terms of the AI training, it's learning from experience, so the data that it has, but it can't as yet interpret that level of emotion or how frustrated you are behind that chatbot. How much how much anger or how much empathy you need, and hence that's why those hospitality skills are needed to be able to intervene in those scenarios to add in that extra customer touch. So I think, yes, it's important for businesses to invest in the tech and to upgrade and to be able to deliver efficiency. But that efficiency needs to be complemented with the harmonization of these human skills, which is necessary for us to be able to still have that personal touch. Personally, for myself, I don't know about other people, but when I see a chatbot, I decide I want to talk to a human being. And sometimes I've written into chatbots, can I speak to a human? Because I know the chatbot can't respond to the complex query that I have, because it doesn't have the training as yet to be able to do so.
It's the modern version of, calling a company, getting a touch tone dial menu that you might have gotten 20 years ago and trying to press all the buttons to talk to a person. Yeah. Is this what consumers want, in any kind of business interaction? Do they want that emotional labor done by a human, not done by a robot?
Well, I think it depends on the type of consumers you're looking to attract and the type of business that you have. So if I could give you a recent scenario from my own experience, remortgaging my house. So you get all of these different interventions coming to you, which is generated based on your past history, using AI to help generate what your next mortgage might look like. But for me, none of that makes sense until a financial advisor comes and say to me, well, this is what this means, this is what this means. So again, the technology is giving you things, but if there isn't somebody there to help you interpret or understand that, how can you make better decisions? And a lot of times we're trying to make good decision as consumers, but because we don't have that information to guide us, all we have is what the AI or the chatbot or the concierge or whatever is being given to us. We need some level of help with decision making, and I think that's where the human touch is quite important. And that's where those hospitality skills come in, to be able to help us to interpret, to understand these type of experiences.
So perhaps our jobs aren't all at risk, is what you're saying. We could put out a radio show with an AI-generated voice, generate the prompts using ChatGPT and stuff. Yeah. I doubt anyone would listen. I think there are still a lot of jobs where human touch, despite the fact that in the next few years technology will be able to do them, I think there's a lot of jobs that will be safe, that consumers will want people in. Do you agree with that?
I completely agree. I think AI will reshape work. And there is a lot of conversation around AI replacing or taking away jobs. But I think what is still left to be explored is, what does work mean in an AI world? So what does that work look like? So again, if we take a hotel context, we currently have revenue managers, but we might not need revenue managers in the future. They might be data analysts, because they're looking at the outputs from the AI systems in terms of how they price rooms, how they optimize their pricing, etc. So the job title is changing, the skills are changing, but you still need that human element in terms of that experience. But what I can't see as yet, and is what I hope to research further, is what does work actually mean to us in an AI world? So where do we get that sort of satisfaction of work coming from? I enjoy going to work. I enjoy what I do. I get satisfaction of it. But if somebody's going to tell me that I can't deliver a face-to-face class anymore because a robot is going to do that for me, then how is that going to change how I work? Well, I'm going to find other ways of having interactions with the students. So it's thinking about what the fundamental meaning behind work. And I think the other thing is to explore is that a lot of the work on AI and around work talks about AI removing sort of these line level jobs. And again, what about people who derive satisfaction from those jobs? Not everybody wants to be a CEO. Not everybody wants to be leading a big Fortune 500 company. We all have different levels of jobs, which we get job satisfaction from. So it's thinking about the different levels of jobs, thinking about the kind of work that we do. And I think it's going to a more fundamental question. What does work actually mean in an AI world? And that's where my next piece of work, that's where, I hope this work would lead to in terms of future research is what does work actually look like in an AI work, and how do we actually find value in that work? And in any sector, in hotels, in finance, in banking, in healthcare, we still have to have that human touch. And I think that human touch is what is going to give that meaning to work. Because if we think the robots are going to take over, but something needs to still be there for us to have this connectivity and for us to have this connection and for us to make the business work.
It sounds like the future is sort of going to be AI and humanity mixed together in ways that are somewhat predictable, but also in ways that we may not ever expect. Alisha Ali is an associate professor of hospitality and tourism at Sheffield Hallam University in the UK. Alisha, I've enjoyed the chat. You've opened a lot of thought-provoking questions. Thanks for joining me.
My pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, David.
Coming up next, content warning, sensitive listeners, you might want to be advised. The topic of pelvic floors is going to come up. Here's what we'll discuss. The biggest health upgrade in your house might not be a supplement, but instead a small, mysterious stool by your toilet. Knees up, muscles relaxed, the science is going to get weird. Stick around because your bathroom habits might change after hearing this.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Please be advised that the following program contains audio content that may be graphic and potentially triggering for some listeners. This content may include descriptions or sounds that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is strongly advised. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Tonight, we're going to chat about poop posture, pelvic floors, and why a humble stool in your bathroom could be an extremely useful medical device. We're going to get into what the squatty potty is and why the default way you sit on la toilette was never meant to be the way that humans sat when nature called. I am here with board-certified pelvic health therapist, Dr. Sara Reardon, who you can find on social media at The Vagina Whisperer to discuss. Sara, my goodness, I'm so glad you're here.
I'm happy to be here, David.
So you posted on the internet that there's not a bathroom in your house without the squatty potty. I guess you're a fan of this thing. I suppose you're an unpaid brand ambassador.
I am an unpaid brand ambassador, but I'm also a pelvic floor physical therapist, and we teach folks how to do things to optimize their pelvic floor health. So peeing without pushing, pooping without straining, all of the things to kind of make sure that we keep our pee and poop in our whole lives and can have comfortable, pain-free sex. So along with that is teaching people how to properly poop using a squatty potty.
A lot of people have bad pooping habits. They're constipated all the time, and they just think, I'm kind of one of them. I have IBS, and I refuse to change my diet, but that's a conversation for someone else. The fact is, people just think, constipation or things like that are just a part of my life. I struggle in the bathroom. That's just a part of my life. I'm not going to talk to anyone about it. I'll just suffer. What do you say to someone like that?
Well, straining with bowel movements and constipation can weaken your pelvic floor muscles over time. So these muscles help keep urine and stool in until an appropriate time. Then we can relax them to empty. They support your pelvic organs. They relax for sexual intercourse. They contract and relax for orgasms. They support our spine. So they're super important. And if they weaken over time, particularly in women, this can lead to leakage of urine, leakage of stool, pelvic organ prolapse. So the number one thing I teach people is how to poop properly because I don't want them straining. And again, straining just weakens these muscles over time. But this is something we're never taught. Nobody teaches us how to properly poop until you find me on social media or you have me on your show.
No, I think it's great. I think we all think we know how to do it properly because we're taught it at a very young age and we do it very often and we don't. Like we're taught with sex education, I would hope in most places, some people it's a little spotty, but we're taught about sex. We're taught about all kinds of things. Or even online, like makeup tutorials, how to shampoo. We're taught all these things. No one teaches us how to do number two, which I think leads into my next question. How do we do number 2? Give me a lesson, please. I'm begging you.
So the best way to relax your pelvic floor muscles is in a squatting position. So historically, when people used to go to the bathroom, there were outhouses in the backyard, and you would squat over a hole in the ground. As we became more civilized and had more resources, we moved bathrooms inside, and then we put a chair or a toilet over this hole in the ground, which is how we got to modern day pooping posture. But again, to recreate that squatting position, putting a stool under your feet elevates your feet and puts you into that squat, and that relaxes your pelvic floor muscles. So you sit down, feet on the stool, lean forward, and instead of holding your breath to push out as you're pooping, I tell you to exhale like you're blowing out 50 birthday candles. So that prevents you from holding your breath, which again can weaken your muscles and lead to incomplete emptying. So stool under the feet, lean forward, exhale like you're blowing out birthday candles.
And it makes the whole event rather celebratory or celebratory.
And it will change your life. I think once you get one of these stools in your bathroom, David, you're going to be like, how have I been not pooping this way my entire life?
I'm playing the fool mostly because I am one, but also I have a squatty potty. I love it, and I was so against it. My girlfriend made us get one, and now I love it. How forward should I be leaning? Should
Just
I
on
be
your
like
elbows.
my chest against my knees?
No, just rest onto your elbows in a comfortable, relaxed position. So, and I tell people who are teaching their kids how to poop, like I've got 2 little kids, I'm like, put your feet on the stool. It helps you relax better. If you are in, Asia or the woods or India, we all squat over the ground in those situations because it's much more physiologically natural. And now we're reverse engineering that in our Western civilization by putting the stool under your feet.
For those listening, kind of scoffing at this and thinking, oh, it doesn't matter. Can improper bathroom posture weaken your pelvic floor over time? And if it does, what are the consequences of that?
It can if you're straining and not emptying well, totally. So, I think we often think of pelvic floor problems like leakage or, weakness of these pelvic floor muscles in older women or women with babies. But this can happen at any age from this improper pooping because you're straining. And straining weakens things over time. And that can lead to some of the things we mentioned, leakage of urine, leakage of gas or stool, like not able to hold in your bowel movements till you get to the bathroom in time. Pelvic organ prolapse, which is when you have your organs start to kind of descend into the vaginal canal. Sounds very scary, but it's due to weakness. Or even things like a hernia or an abdominal separation. So again, pressure is going to want to find the path of least resistance in your body. And when you're straining, it's going to go down towards the vaginal opening in women, typically.
That does not sound fun. Can you reverse all that? Can you get a strong and healthy pelvic floor? Is there a pelvic floor like Olympics where you're competing about how strong it is, that kind of thing? No, I'm kidding. But how do I strengthen it?
Well, that's my job, right? As a pelvic floor therapist, I'm like a coach for your pelvic floor. So, I have an app available called the VHive app where it teaches you how to do these pelvic floor strengthening exercises at home. It teaches you how to poop properly. It also teaches you how to pee properly. So when peeing is another thing where I call it power peeing. You push as hard as you can to empty your bladder. Again, something that can weaken your pelvic floor muscles. So sit, chill while you're peeing. You don't need to use the squatty potty for that. But these things that we're doing every day can affect our pelvic floor muscles over time. Just like if you pick up something wrong over and over again, you could strain your back. Same thing can happen to your pelvic floor. So yes, you can strengthen it. That's our job as pelvic floor therapists. And then we teach you all the tips and tools to kind of maintain this strength throughout a lifetime.
And these squatty potties, do they come in many different designs? Like ours is this fancy wood one. It's not even plastic.
I bet you have the fancy bamboo model.
Yeah, I do. I'm a classy guy. What can I say?
The cool thing now is there's a portable travel one, which I actually fold up and put into my suitcase when I travel. There's a clear acrylic one for the modern folks. There's a plastic one that's easily cleanable and wipeable. There's the bamboo ones for modern folks like you. So there are a lot of different varieties. I think the biggest or the most common question I get is what size should people get? And typically they're between 7 to 9 inches high. So, but it also depends on the height of your toilet. Like I'm a shorter person, so I need a taller stool under my feet. If you're a really tall person, you probably don't even need one that high. So you just want to get your knees above your hip level when you're in sitting. That's kind of the squat that we're looking for.
What if someone's a bit older, like I'm turning 40 in a year, and they've been just constipated and straining and not using a squatty potty and not doing things right, into middle age? Oh, God, that makes me feel so old, but that's not your problem. That's my therapist's problem. What advice do you have for them to take kind of corrective action, like to sort of make their pelvic floor healthy again?
Right. So when it comes to bowel movements, I would say the first thing is get the squatty potty, but also exercise is key. Like these muscles need blood flow. So we're all sitting too much during the day, getting up and walking 30 minutes a day or taking breaks between our Zoom calls, eating high fiber foods, drinking plenty of water, and strength training. Strength training and pulling in that pelvic floor muscle will help contract these muscles and strengthen them over time. So, these are muscles like every other muscle in your body. You have to strengthen them, you have to train them, and have a good maintenance program for them long term. But it doesn't take a huge lift out of your life to do them. It could take just a few minutes a day, and then changing some of your habits like how you pee and poop could make a big difference.
Check out the VHive app, where Dr. Sara Reardon is a founder. She's a board-certified pelvic health therapist. When we come back, I want to talk about the pelvic floor and sex. Is it true that a pelvic floor that's healthy can change your orgasm game? That is my question. We'll be back with Sara in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Please be advised that the following program contains audio content that may be graphic and potentially triggering for some listeners. This content may include descriptions or sounds that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is strongly advised. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Is your pelvic floor healthy? That is the great question we are attempting to answer here with Dr. Sara Reardon, a board-certified pelvic health therapist. Sara, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
Before the break, you were extolling the benefits of using a squatty potty. You were talking about having a healthy pelvic floor. You briefly mentioned someone with a healthy pelvic floor would have a better sex situation. Wow, that was such a weird way to say that. Not important. Is it true that having a good, healthy pelvic floor can help with sex and orgasms and enjoyment and all that stuff?
Absolutely. It's one of the main functions of this group of muscles. So to even take a step backwards, your pelvic floor muscles sit at the bottom of your pelvis, and they support your pelvic organs. They hold in pee and poop until you're ready to go to the bathroom. And in female bodies, they have the vaginal opening for vaginal intercourse, vaginal birth, orgasms, and menstruation. So if you have strong, coordinated pelvic floor muscles, you can have great sensation during sexual intercourse. You can have orgasms that are strong and pleasurable, and you've got a lot of healthy blood flow to the area. I will say, on the flip side, some people do struggle with painful intercourse and the inability to have orgasms if their muscles are too tense. We talk about weakness a lot for these muscles, but they can also be too tight or tense, which can influence sexual health.
Now, how can a woman have a strong, healthy pelvic floor? I mean, that's the question here.
Right. So these are muscles like every other muscle in your body. If you are contracting them throughout the day when you need them, say when you're lifting weights, lifting your kids, putting things into your car, if you're moving throughout the day, these muscles need blood flow. So making sure you're getting up and taking daily walks, not tensing in these muscles when you're stressed or sitting through stressful Zoom meetings or in traffic. And when you're relaxing well to have good bowel movement and empty your bladder well. Those are the day-to-day things you can do to keep these pelvic floor muscles healthy. And then you can strengthen them. Just like if you want bigger biceps, you do more bicep curls, right? You can do more pelvic floor contractions to strengthen these muscles.
Are these the infamous Kegel exercises that I feel like were the butt end of every joke of every 90s sitcom? What are Kegels? Do they help, or is there some other way to strengthen them?
So Kegels are pelvic floor muscle contractions. It's like as if you are trying to hold in urine or hold in gas. So they're tightening and lifting of these muscles, but you also have to relax the muscles well. I think the narrative in the 90s was just do your Kegels and your pelvic floor is going to be healthy. That is not always true. You have to contract these muscles and relax them well. And you also have to use the muscles in different positions. You can't just do Kegels in the carpool lane. You have to do them with strength training.
The
You have to
regular lane as well. Oh, no,
Right,
no.
the
There's,
any traffic lane. But you've got
got
to
it.
use them in standing and squatting and lunging and all of the activities you need throughout the day. So they're one exercise. It's like saying if you have back pain, just do crunches. It definitely takes more than that. If you want stronger pelvic floor muscles, this is the way to start, but you have to do longer contractions, different positions, and build them into strength training.
Are there pelvic floor mistakes that you see hurting women's sexual comfort, sexual enjoyment, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. I think, one of the biggest mistakes, and this is getting better, is that we were all taught to like just hold these muscles super tight all the time, like suck your belly button in, tighten your vagina. And it's actually, again, about relaxation of these muscles. To accommodate something internally, we need to be able to relax these muscles and soften. That's going to help with blood flow, lubrication. And if you're just walking around tight all of the time, particularly in today's environment, that's going to lead to discomfort with intercourse and difficulty with orgasms.
Is it a bad thing if somebody leaks when they sneeze or leaks when somebody cracks a great joke and they start laughing a lot? Or is that a normal part of everyday life that we just pretend doesn't happen?
It's common, but it's not normal. Leakage and pain are information from your body that something's not working the way it should be. When you cough or sneeze, these muscles should contract to hold in urine in your bladder. If they're relaxing and they're leaking, that could be a weakness issue. It could be an incoordination or tension issue. It could be your bladder's not emptying well. So it's a sign that your pelvic floor needs some work. And this is where myself as a pelvic floor therapist comes in to help you retrain these muscles.
If someone is listening and they have a little bit of the drop or a knot in their stomach, they're thinking, this is me, I don't have a great, healthy pelvic floor. Is there like a single most impactful thing that a woman can do today to improve health?
Well, the first is it's always step one is awareness. And step two, there's actually a great quiz I have on my website. It's called thevaginawhisper.com. And it walks you through, are you leaking? Do you have pain? And it tells you, are you more likely to have tension in your muscles and you need relaxation? Or are you more likely to have weakness and you need strengthening? I think the first thing is to kind of determine which pathway you need to walk down. And then you can start doing the right exercises. But if you're just going to do Kegels all the time, that might not be the right exercises for you.
Do you ever get strange questions from people who follow you on social media, like really weird ones, and you're like, my goodness, and are they safe for radio? If so, what would one be?
Strange questions and pictures. And I'm like, you're putting this stuff on the interwebs, people. These are body parts you are putting out to a stranger you don't know. I actually get a lot of questions about partners and kids, like, hey, I have this problem, but I think my husband has this problem too, or I think my kid might have a problem. So some of those questions about like, can a male have a hard time emptying their bladder or erectile dysfunction or painful bowel movements, all of those things. A lot of questions about vaginal pain, burning, tailbone pain, hip pain, all of those can be connected to pelvic floor issues as well. I think the biggest thing is when you have someone like myself talking very openly about the pelvic floor, it helps people feel comfortable that they're not alone and that there are resources. So I don't mind the questions. I just want to get people to the right resources for help.
So side note, don't DM you, explicit pictures of health things. Got it.
Questions fine. Pictures, I would keep on your own phone.
Got it. Got it. Have you ever encountered someone, and I'm asking for a friend, I swear I'm not soliciting free medical advice. Have you ever encountered someone with shy bladder? That's someone who has, very tense down there all the time and has trouble peeing in public. Maybe if there's a man next to you in the urinal. Maybe you were at the racetrack when you were a kid and your dad was screaming at you to pee because his horse was about to race, the horse he betted on, and then, you couldn't go, and now you have a complex for the rest of your life. I'm asking for a friend again. This has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, I've never heard, probably never met anybody who has this problem, but actually kidding, I have. I actually have a book out called Floored, A Woman's Guide to Pelvic Floor Health at Every Age and Stage, and I talk about shy bladder syndrome in there because it actually is a situation where in certain environments, typically in public environments,
airplanes for this friend, airplanes.
Someone cannot relax their muscles well to start their urine stream. And it can get them very uncomfortable, put them at risk for urinary tract infections, cause like a lot of urinary retention. So there's training that you can do that we actually walk through to get you to relax in public. I'm sorry, relax in the privacy of your home. Then like use a mirror to kind of like somebody else is in the room with you, even though it's you. Start urinating with the door open. Start having somebody nearby at your home. So like little gradual baby steps to help you teach your muscles to relax. Also working with a therapist because there's an anxiety component to this, to just overall nervous system downregulation can be helpful.
Sorry, I was just taking notes. Again, for the friend, are there any more myths about pelvic health that you want to dispel or anything you just want to nail down again before we go here, Sara?
So some of the biggest things are all genders have pelvic floors and all genders can have pelvic floor issues. So this is not just a female problem. It's also just not an aging and postpartum problem. So at any age or stage, folks can have pelvic floor issues that need addressing. And it's also never too late. I treat women in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and they are still benefiting from learning these exercises. And so I don't want diapers to be the destiny for all of us. I think that there's a lot we can do to prevent these issues from happening now and later in life.
Well, you can find board-certified pelvic health therapist Dr. Sara Reardon at The Vagina Whisperer on social media. Check out her book, Floored, A Woman's Guide to Pelvic Floor Health at Every Age and Stage. Sara, it has been an absolute joy having you on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, David.
That's a wrap on our Tuesday night show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like our program and want to see videos of the interviews you've heard, you can do that. Just follow us on any of the social media platforms like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. You get the point. And if you do, you'll catch videos of us asking some of the smartest people you've heard some of the stupidest questions I can think of. Our handle is lastshow.pizza on all those platforms. I'm David Cooper. This was The Last Show, but not the last show. We'll be back tomorrow night.
We're leaving today and entering a world of Mickey Mouse waving, princess meeting and greeting, lightsaber clashing, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror dropping, Banshee flying, Space Mountain launching, galaxy rewinding. What's the point with galaxy rewinding? Fireworks igniting. World of other worlds. For whatever you love, infinite worlds await at the most magical place on Earth, Walt Disney World Resort.